We continue our countdown of the biggest stories of 2016 in mixed martial arts here with Robin Black and John Ramdeen. Number 3, guys, is the formation of a Fighters Association, and there's definitely a plural to this. Are you not a fan?
It's not that I'm not a fan. We've heard this already. There's been a number of unions over the last number of years.
Let's lay it out on the table. We have the long-standing MMA FA that's been doing this for years and years.
Randy,
at this point,
Carlos,
Rob
real
Macy
fighters.
attached to that. Then in August, we had the announcement of the PFA, led by Jeff Boris, and that one has had a lot of problems.
I think that one's dead already.
Yeah, I think after Lucas Middlebrook and Leslie Smith left that outfit, there were a lot of problems. We don't even know if it's going to be lasting
you know,
that much
when those
longer.
big names leave and it falls apart, you know.
Well, it was. We can get into that as well. But then we had the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association, which was the latest one.
The highest profile one, I guess you would say.
The one that used the media the best.
Yeah.
That one, Bjorn Rebney, apparently owns the websites and some of the registration of those companies. If you're a fighter and you want to gather support and you want to be involved and you believe in unions, go call up Randy Couture, call up Carlos Newton. You know what I mean? I don't think Bjorn Rebney's going to be your guy.
Bjorn Rebney, to me, has been the most polarizing figure because I feel that there is a lot of positive sentiment towards George St. Pierre, to Tim Kennedy, Cain Velasquez, TJ Dillashaw, Donald Cerrone. And Bjorn Rebney, they've stated, listen, this guy's not on the board, he is just an advisor, and he's definitely quieted his tune because that first week, he was the one out there doing the interviews. He was the one that was becoming the face of this thing, and I think a lot of fighters are not going to get on board with something where Bjorn Rebney's involved. So at most, I think he should be a silent advisor and not in the public, if involved at all, John.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that the fighters have been saying, it's like the whole Bjorn attachment has left a bad taste in their mouth, and they said they don't know. They said they're confused. They don't have enough information. They were kind of pulled into this scenario last minute. Said this is going to be good for the sport. Everybody's going to get their chunk of pie, and it sounds good to the fighters. Everybody wants benefits, and they want pension, and they want to be taken care of after their career is over. It's just, is that what we're seeing right now? Has there been any movement from any of these organizations to say that the fighters will be taken care of in the future? I don't know if the answer is yes.
Well, you to the public, it's like, we need to do something about this big, powerful billion-dollar company when some of our fighters are getting paid $12,000. That makes sense. But most people don't know what that is or how that works or what the steps would be. They're just like, union, that's good. This no union is bad. I think what Bjorn Rebney and his strategy of using the media, who also don't know most of the time what they're saying, to pass on a story that most of us don't know what we're saying, to people to go, yes, this is good, will actually help Randy and Carlos. Because it'll end up directing people back to that, which are pro fighters, former champions, guys who actually have the right idea, modeled after unions that have worked in television and in baseball, not motivated by trying to get richer or famous or whatever. That may end up pointing it back to those guys who are the logical people in the first place. But you know, most of the, if you can name me a union that has successfully come out of nowhere in the last decade, you know, I talked to a CFO at a big company, they're like, that just never happens. There's too many powers that try to resist it. The capitalist society that we live in is kind of shaped into a meritocracy. And a meritocracy is, if you're the biggest, you get the most money, and if you're the smallest, you get the least money. Within a meritocracy, your job starts to become, how do I become so valuable it's undeniable? Uriah Faber got paid $360,000 for that fight, as well he should, and somebody on the undercard got paid $12,000. Is that wrong? You know, is that wrong?
No.
When you look at the long-term game for any of these organizations, does it come down to numbers or does it come down to the right person? Like a Conor McGregor, to your point here, he carries more power than I would say 98% of the UFC roster.
Yeah.
If he were to get behind one of these and state, until there are concrete changes, I'm sitting on the sidelines in a year where the UFC needs to perform on pay-per-view, that's a lot of weight. Or is it just simply trying to get a unified front where there's one organization with numbers behind it?
I don't think you can just rely on one person because, A, it's as individuals, you can see.
There's no reason for the UFC to change anything, is what I'm saying. It's that you can form this. The UFC, to me, their feet are not against the fire yet, unless there is someone behind it where, okay, the UFC has a reason to alter their business practices.
I'll tell you, if all of us as people watched, whether it was Ronda or Conor or anyone else, and George fits into this category, stand up and say, to my own personal loss of what could be 10 or 20 million dollars, I'm going to take this stance based on my principles of belief, we would all admire that.
100%.
Regardless of where you sit on any of these things. When you look and see somebody say, I'm going to put the greater good ahead of myself, we all admire that.
Is an individual going to do that? Is a George St. Pierre or Conor McGregor going to be willing to say, you know what? I'm going to take a $10 or $40 million pay cut to ensure the future of mixed martial arts and their combatants.
I can't imagine most people, anybody thinking of that and going, yeah, I would do that. But when you do imagine somebody doing that, don't you admire that? Don't
you do.
think for a person to stand up and say, I'm going to lose something. Muhammad Ali made huge stances in his life about something and lost part of his career because of his unwillingness to break his beliefs about war. When you see that, you remember that forever. So anytime somebody does that is something we admire.
I really hope that this does move forward in 2017. I hope we're not looking a year back and saying, remember when all those associations were being talked about and we have nothing to show for it.
When did Randy and Carlos, when did that get
It's been
formed?
a few years.
It's
But these things take time. And again, you want to talk about admiring people. When people dedicate themselves to something and it doesn't just get huge right away, and the media doesn't go, oh my God, the MMA, whatever letters. Instead, these guys dedicate time and money and effort over years and years and years, and then accomplish something. You admire that. You learn from that. Popping up and getting the whole media to write about something and using the terms industry changing. I mean, we're past that. It's 2017. We don't buy everything we see. We don't believe that Doritos is bringing out the bold or whatever. You know what I mean? This is just marketing. But when people dedicate themselves for a long period of time and invest personal efforts and money in something like Carlos and Randy are doing, you admire that.
All right, unions and associations. That was our third story of 2016.